Welcome to day 4 of the 28-day Get Hired Challenge. I'm Alyssa Miller, and today we are going to start digging into the many disciplines of cybersecurity, those disciplines you will be interested in as you start looking for your job. So, without further ado, let's get started. All right, it is day 4 of the 28-day Get Hired Challenge. I am trying to get you hired in cybersecurity. So let's do this. We are breaking down the many disciplines of cybersecurity. All of those different focus areas, different ways you could get involved in a career in cybersecurity. Now, why is this important? Well, first 3 videos, we talked about the background of cybersecurity and all of how it, information security and cybersecurity kind of, they've formed over the years. Hacker culture came in. We talked about why diversity is important. And now we're going to talk about the diversity that is the roles that you can seek in cybersecurity, because understanding just the types of work that you can do is super important when it comes to figuring out what role you're going to go after in cybersecurity. You see, I've had people come to me a lot asking for, different pointers or, some mentorship or whatnot around, trying to start their careers. And what my first question is quite often, hey, well, what do you want to do in cybersecurity? And some people know right away, right? They're right there and they know exactly what they want to do, and that's great. But I get a number of people who come to me and they say, well, I just want to learn all of it. Or I just want to work in cybersecurity. I don't care where. And that can be trouble. That makes it really hard to focus your efforts. That makes it, you're never going to learn all of cybersecurity. It is an immense field with so much that you could possibly learn. None of us is ever going to know it all. And so you're going to start to see why. And then as we get into later episodes of this, we're going to talk about how you can figure out which of these disciplines is right for you, what types of jobs you should be looking at based on your interests. And we'll go through some exercises. We got lots to cover. Those are coming up in future episodes. But today, we're talking through just what some of those disciplines are, some of the common disciplines you're going to run into as you look at different cybersecurity positions. So let's get into this. So this is a graphic straight out of the book, all right? And this is where we're talking about cybersecurity disciplines. Now, this is not meant to be an all-inclusive list. This is not meant to be the authoritative view of these. This is just one representation, one way to look at it. Because I know there's going to be those experienced folks out there who are going to look at me and say, Alyssa, you forgot about this, or this belongs over there, or that shouldn't be, that should be broken up. Everybody's got their own opinions on this, and that's great. I love hearing about it. So just understand, this is just one way to look at it. But let's start going through these. Let's talk about a little bit of what each one entails. So if we start in the upper right with security operations, this is one that I think a lot of us oftentimes are aware of, and a lot of times it's where people get told they should start looking for an entry-level role. When we talk about security operations, we're really talking about the day-to-day, how do we run our cybersecurity infrastructure? So, that might be a security operations center where we've got people monitoring systems 24/7. Now we hear about things like fusion centers, and we talk about, managed security solution providers who manage and provide that as a service. But security operations can be more than that. It can be, how do we administer our users? How do we, on a day-to-day basis, engage in all the various aspects of our security architecture and infrastructure? So that brings me then to our top left, which is the security architecture and design. These are those roles where we got people actually building the security systems that are a part of our infrastructure. This is where we're going to fall into things like, software and IT assets and so forth that actually create the infrastructure that helps keep us secure. So this might be things like firewalls. It could be things like web application firewalls. It could be email security platforms. It could be the endpoint security that you have on your systems. These are the people that are building, designing those systems and deploying them, so that then the Security Operations Center can leverage those on a day-to-day basis for all that they do. Now, under security operations, the next one down there on the right, you see digital forensics and incident response. Some people right away will tell you that belongs in security operations. Others will say it's separate. When we talk about digital forensics and incident response, that name pretty much says it all. We're talking about people who are responding when there's an incident that comes up. The Security Operations Center looks at their SIM and they see things that look to be a problem. And the next thing you know, yes, we've identified there's an attacker in our systems. It's time for incident response to kick in. Digital forensics is related to that because digital forensics is really breaking down the systems and looking at them to figure out what happened, to find, how did this attack start? Which of our systems are compromised? That's what we're talking about when we think about digital forensics. But it can go beyond that too. Those disciplines get into really interesting spaces sometimes. Those are the types of people that might get called in to be part of a court case at a later date. That's what digital forensics is all about. Think about it just like, any forensics in the law enforcement sense of the word. So then as we move over to the left, we've got security assessment and verification. Now this is a broad category, and this is the one that I think a lot of people, when they first think about cybersecurity, this is what they think about. They think about pen testers. They think about hackers. And I mean, that's my background, so I get it, and I really appreciate that. But obviously, there's a lot more to cybersecurity. But when we think about security assessment and verification, this can be pen testing. It can be vulnerability scanning as well, which is a little bit different because they were using different tool sets and automated tools to scan our environments broadly and very quickly. We think about red teaming, that idea of pen testers are really trying to just mimic what an attacker would do, and they're not focused on identifying all the vulnerabilities. They want to find, can we compromise something? And that leads into purple teaming, where we've got penetration testers, those red teamers doing their thing, but then they're also working with the defenders or that blue team as they go through it to try to help improve those defenses. So they might be working with folks from security architecture and design or the security operations team. This is also where we get into things like social engineering and physical security assessments. And we might even get into other audits, like organizations will do even open source information or open source intelligence, or OSINT as we call it, assessments, where they just try to figure out what types of information is available. So there's a lot of different elements that fall into this category, as you can see. Right below that, and I'm going to kind of shift our motion here, application software and product security. This is where we're looking at the systems that we're developing. If we're a business that creates software, or we provide a service, whatever, we're leveraging software that we've built or that we've bought from third parties, or maybe some of both. This is that discipline that surrounds us. This is when we think about how do we bring security into DevOps, for those of you that are familiar with development environments. How do we make security a thing that we do? How do we get into things like threat modeling or software composition analysis or source code reviews, architecture reviews? and all of those disciplines that surround making secure software. And then as I mentioned that, I start to think about this one off to the right, governance and compliance. This is one people they kind of forget about, and people, for some reason, they don't always look at governance and compliance as like a really exciting career space sometimes. But there are a lot of people who are really good at this and really enjoy it. This is where we're trying to make sure that we're actually writing standards that enforce all of these security controls. We're making sure that our security controls are implemented well so that they're truly having the desired impact. And this can also come into play if we have different regulations from governments that we have to comply with. Maybe even our own customers have requirements for us. All of that fits into governance and compliance. It can actually be a really exciting field, even though sometimes people don't give it the level of respect, honestly, that it deserves. And then you see education and awareness. Education and awareness is a crucial element. We talked way back in the first day about the human element in cybersecurity, right? And that human element is so important. How do we educate our users? Sometimes we hear that, the users can be the weakest link, and maybe they can. So education and awareness, we have people out there all the time trying to bring not just training, but just overall education to folks who are not cybersecurity specialists in any form. All of those users throughout our systems, when we think about it on the broader scale of society, how do we bring that message to the masses, if you will? That's what fits into security education and awareness. And then sales and support. Now, this is one that always gets people fired up because people complain about sales and they don't believe that salespeople can be part of security because there's this belief that salespeople aren't skilled in security. But I can tell you what, I have many, many colleagues who are incredible cybersecurity talents who excel in sales. And you know what? As a CISO, it's really important to me that we have good salespeople. So I want people who have a passion for cybersecurity to be sales engineers, to do those roles because I'm coming to you to get products and services. I need people who are skilled and who can consult with me and help me understand best practices with tools. And then finally, I didn't add it to this list, but I do talk about it in the book. And since I mentioned that I'm a CISO, I'm going to throw it out there because I'm a little biased. There's that cybersecurity leadership and executives. Now, why do I throw that in there as a separate discipline? Because being in management is a very different skill set than all of what you see here. And it's important to recognize that as well. Because when we start to grow into management, and not everybody needs to or wants to get into management, but as you grow into those leadership roles, part of your job now becomes setting the strategy for how all of those elements that we just talked about fit together. How are you going to structure that within your organization? How are you going to make sure that the rest of the executive team is bought in and supports what you do? How are you going to make sure that the entire organization is working within your program and that you're getting buy-in and support and that you're able to be successful in what it is that you and your team are trying to do? So all of these elements, these are all different ways that we can get engaged in cybersecurity. So as you start to think about where you might want to go in cybersecurity, it's important to recognize just that broad breadth of the different opportunities that are available to you. And we're going to dig into this more because we're going to talk about how you can look at your skills, your experience, and your knowledge and apply that to these various roles and figure out what fits you best. So that's coming up in later chapters. But for now, hey, I want to hear from you. What is one area of cybersecurity, one discipline that you want to learn more about or that you're interested in? Put that in the chat below, and one lucky winner is going to win a copy of my book. And then there's a reminder also, all this month, Manning Publications is offering you 35% off all of their titles. Just go to their website, manning.com, and enter the discount code 28day CHL Miller. Or make it easier, just go to the link that you see there on your screen, which will also be in the notes below. Or go ahead and scan that QR code. I promise you it's safe. I promise you it's not a Rickroll. I would not do that to you because you know what? I love y'all and I want to help get you hired in cybersecurity. So keep coming back. Day 5 is next. We got lots more content for you. We're going to keep going and we're going to keep doing this thing. I'll see you next time.